Good afternoon, sir. How are you doing?
Doing well. How are you?
Pretty solid, pretty solid. Just getting my personal into, getting D-book up here, and we'll get rolling. What's your day been like?
Not much, man. Just looked over the snow and snow earnings really quickly. Looks like they had a great quarter. Proved their guide. Saw you're about to hit 100K on the Wolf account. Very
We're
exciting.
close. We're
I
close.
just tweeted out. I said we got to hit that by the time we're done here.
I appreciated that. Yeah, that definitely helped the cause for sure. All right, I love it. I'm gonna go ahead and retweet that. That's perfect. Okay, what's going on, D-book?
What's going on, guys? I'm ready to roll. It was definitely like, I almost lost my mind today with that midday chop, but ready to roll.
Yeah, I'm glad I actually stopped trading around, I think like 11 today, right around there. That's when I cut everything, and I'm glad I did. I honestly, really, the only thing I took, I was listening to you all morning, man's live. I ended up taking T-Doc with you,
Yeah.
and I took those T-Doc calls from 72 to 90.
Yeah, that was clean. T-Dog move was really nice off of Peloton's daily volume was insane today. Yeah, the only I actually had a great morning, and then like you said, I kind of was really inactive towards the end of the day. But Baba was really nice too. Alibaba had a great move today, and T-Doc was really nice off Peloton. So that was a
Yeah,
nice win. Just
that's actually a place where I wanted to start today because I felt like that was really cool to see in real time. And I think is a big thing that differentiates experienced traders from people who don't have as much experience, even if they use the same techniques and other stuff. And it was you were looking at the market, you saw a pop in Peloton, you said, hey, last time I saw this pop in Peloton, I saw it also happen in TDOC, I saw it also happen in Coin, whatever it is. And you made that association, you looked at the setup and you got in. I think that's a big separator between maybe yourself and more experienced traders from less experienced traders. Can you walk through exactly kind of how that process works, how you categorize stuff, how you find these sympathies?
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I'll start with the fact that if you don't feel like you have that down right away, that's not something to be upset about. That is something that takes time, and that comes with experience, and that is the reward of putting the hours in, is you become very familiar and good at those things. So for me, it's really, again, experience is a big thing in that aspect. And, so for example, this morning, I sat down at my desk before I did the pre-market live stream, which is like a video stream that I do every morning where I kind of go over what I'm looking at. And Peloton, the news, obviously had the keyword in there, which is Amazon, right? And when Peloton has news like that, excuse me, I just ate lunch, so I had a little burp there. But no, so when Peloton has news like that, Peloton has these liquidity days, which again comes with experience. But if you saw last time, Peloton, I believe it was in October, Peloton had news about them cutting their hiring, which Wall Street liked because that means they're cutting expenses. And it had 100 million volume day, right? And they have these big high liquidity volume days. And I was like, you know what, this news might be good enough that it gets that. And if it does, then T-Doc and Carvana, those are the two kind of growth stocks that for whatever reason tend to run with Peloton when it goes. So those were on my radar this morning. And I saw that T-Doc had relative strength off the open this morning. And so, when I saw Peloton was going to have that volume, I think in the first 20 minutes, that's a really important thing to look at. Peloton had 20 million in volume in the first 15 minutes of the open, which is insane because it normally trades 7 million. So I immediately knew that T-Doc would get a push off of it. And so I entered those T-Doc calls while it hadn't moved for the day. And like I said, it ended up being a really nice win. So it's all about being able to pivot. But again, that comes with experience and going over setups pre-market. If you devote 30 minutes, you're probably going to be in a better spot than most.
What does that look like in the pre-market? Because typically, when I'm listening to you, you come on live a couple minutes before the open. So what's going on before that?
Yeah, so I do a pre-market live stream, which is on my YouTube. Well, it's run through YouTube, but it's through Patreon. And so I post the link, and I do so I get on voice at 9:29, a minute before the open, but I do a whole video stream before that. And so you can it's basically my charts, everything, and I go over exactly what my plan is, and then before the pre-market live, there's the pre-market prep for the pre-market live, which is like where I go through all the news headlines that I like, or like setups that I'm looking at, because I make my watch list the night before now. And then I go through like any news related setups. Like, for example, Piton news came out at 8:30. So like right when I was getting to the desk around 8:30 ish, that news came out. And when I saw that, I was like, okay, this is going to be at the top of my focus list for today. So I walk through all of my like levels and what I'm looking at for everyone in the room. And they can watch me do the live stream and in real time, and they can see me and the charts. And like I go through everything and like walk through what I'm exactly looking for. And I mentioned, hey, like Piton, if it has a really big volume day and gets a good move, Teladoc, Carvana are the two I'm going to be looking at.
Okay, perfect. Hey, D-Book, I'd love to hear some of your thoughts as well on the sympathy trading, your thoughts around that, and if it's something that you're using often and how you go about it.
Yeah, of course. This morning, like a half hour or an hour before open, I was on some live audio too, and we were talking about how really like yesterday morning was because we saw names like yesterday morning for the first time in like over a week. We saw names like Coin, Upstart, Roblox, and just really like those pure growth names, speculative names. Yesterday morning pop off for and the moves didn't hold. It was really only like a half hour move, but I feel like that kind of gave us a hint to be looking in that direction this morning, just off of yesterday morning. And I don't even think the indexes were hot yesterday morning, but just the way those names popped yesterday morning gave me kind of a heads up this morning that, hey, like those showed some life for the first time in a week. I think we should probably be looking there. And then we open and kind of the same thing again, just super speculative names, ramping wall. Maybe, you know, spot, because SPY didn't go anywhere for the first almost 40 minutes. And so for those names just to be like relative against the market like that. And then I think, like you said, it definitely does come with experience, because you kind of like have these little like baskets in your mind, little like categories like, okay, if and I tried to play Upstart today off of that SoFi momentum and didn't get the greatest entry, but I think that that's just like a perfect example of that kind of like sympathy mindset where SoFi was running off the student loan news we were seeing. Upstart's also in that lending category, and then also Affirm. So that's like in my mind, Affirm, Upstart, and SoFi like together. You see one, you, and it's not so much like buy the other right away. It's just, you know, kind of go take a look at the direct sympathies, even if like Roblox is running, kind of going and looking at Unity, or some of those names. So it really is like an experience thing, and I feel like Mans is like the perfect guy to ask this question to, because he's really like built a lot of his like huge stretches off trading these growth names. But it really is just seeing where strength is, and especially in a weak market like this. Like I haven't been shorting as much. I've been pretty much hunting that long side, because there is strength in places. It's just you got to look a little bit harder, I suppose. Like, I mean, ACB was up 11% today, so it's like it's not the total end of the world. You just kind of have to really look through all your sectors, and then once you see that strength in that one name, kind of just pivot around and look at the other ones. And I think the best way to do that is really just to like take a peek at the sector ETFs, like ARK, just Googling ARK holdings, or XLE, just really looking through those and building that like mental library of tickers has been huge for me. I'm sure you probably like feel the same way with just after a certain point, you see one thing pop, you go look at two other things, and like it's not so much in like an auto buy, just like you know, just having eyes on the whole board. So
Yeah, absolutely. I think that all makes sense. Okay, there's a couple topics I want to get to here, but I think we could start out with the indices since they're in a bit of a precarious position, especially from where we were last week. So last week we did a space as well, Thursday, same time, and SPY had basically just rejected off the 200 day. It was the day after, I believe, and we had kind of come down. We had hit the 5 day. We were still above your day anchored VWAP. We were still above, you know, the 10, the 20, all that stuff. We've given those all up. And even though we did end up having a green day today, we're still below most of that. So I'd love to get thoughts on, you know, where we're sitting here from the sentiment. I don't like we were kind of mentioning around this 419 line being pretty important from those high back on June 2nd. So I'm curious, you know, if you want to kind of go over any lines here that you are, or just any key levels you're watching.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So I'll keep the SPY analysis like pretty simple for me here, and I think everyone will be able to relate to this. But we are in like what we refer to, I think, and a lot of people are referring to it as like the chop zone. Like this is a gross point in terms of like how SPY trades in this range. This is a 10-point range in which we consolidated in at the end of May and into early June before the big move down to 360s. If you're familiar, like prior to that like kind of early to mid June, like really big move down where it was just straight vertical for like 4 days, right? Or straight down for 4 days, excuse me. And so, but we consolidated between 409 and like 417 with major resistance at 417. So, and combine that with like how the volume profile looks on SPY, it's just not a great setup in terms of how that's why the indices have been so choppy as of late. Like if you guys looked at the price action today, you'll notice that it's a lot of like really like lower volume, like it'll get shoved. Like today, like Tesla couldn't hold 900 and that shoved QQQ like an entire point. So it's really more sensitive to like some of those individual weighting names. And personally, I think that the key line to defend is going to be that 407 spot. If SPY gets under 407, that's where I really would probably have a more broad term short bias. And then if we can get back above 417, get a daily or weekly close over that spot, that would kind of increase my confidence back long. Obviously, that's going to really depend on Powell's comments on Friday from Jackson Hole.
Are you seeing TDOC right now in after hours?
I'm not.
Dude, it's up 8%.
What is that? What's the news there?
I think someone might have taken a stake. It was just on my screen because I was asking about it. I don't know if you guys have any calls left. Yeah. Well, there's the
Well,
fun.
that's going to be 37. I was in the 37s. Oh man,
It looks like Amazon shutting down whatever telehealth they had going.
Not.
I
Oh wow,
see.
that's
Yeah.
great news. That's great news. That's really really good news for Teladoc. If Amazon is shutting down their perspective telehealth business, that's a big deal because that was considered like a major player against them, right? They were like that was the whole thing. That's big news.
Yeah.
That'll be watch tomorrow.
I also saw Van Eck Associates increase their stake by 21% today.
Really?
So
okay.
Somebody always knows.
Yeah. No, I'm actually in Snow Commons. I bought the news there because I thought it was really good. Like that's really quickly. Wolf, before I didn't mean to interrupt, but that's a really big thing, guys, in this market is differentiating good news from bad news. There is really, really good news, and when you have really, really good news in a weaker market, that stock is still going to likely follow its good news or its good earnings. So, you might just think we're just talking about this for fun, but this is actually important stuff, and this is exactly what Wolf is talking about. Like, what do you do in the pre-market? It's exactly this, right? Like, these are the things that go through my mind, right? It's like, okay, Teladoc, that was really good news because that Amazon business was considered a major threat to them, right? So start building your watch list based off that for tomorrow if you think that's good news, right? Or if you think that has potential. So I just wanted to interject really quickly with that.
Yeah, no, definitely good points. D-Book, want to give your thoughts on SPY before we just hit the cues?
Yeah, I mean, I've tweeted this. I do use the volume profile, so it shows kind of your supply and demand based off of price level. I tweeted this chart today, and you can see like we're wedged really in between the exact levels Mans was talking about, kind of that 417, and then because that was the pretty much that.
I just pinned it for people who want to see it.
Perfect. Yeah, that opening candle from Monday that opened at 417 from that gap down. So really, when where a candle opens from that gap down is always going to be a key pivot for me, and that's right around that 417 area. Definitely, like obviously a price gap there and stuff. So that's kind of the high end of that range, and then down to the profile shows like roughly 410. But I do agree with that 407 pivot because you can see it's that base. From the beginning of August, late July, where we really took a leg up, consolidated for a little bit and then took that leg up. So it's definitely, I mean, it's almost a super like straightforward and simple setup here on the indices. So I do like that because you have like clear range overhead and below. And I think I'm not sure really when we'll get that move. I would be surprised if it did happen tomorrow prior to Jerome Powell and Jackson Hole. And really, I think the two things controlling most of this and two things that I'm looking at are DXY, which is USD, which has been making a pretty large move, and then the 10-year yield, which went from like, I mean, I think August 1st, we were like 2.65 to 2.7, and now we hit like 3.11 today. So that's, I mean, I think if there's one thing really that's been driving this kind of short-term sell-off, it's been that 10-year yield. So those are the two things I'm looking at, and then definitely those two levels, the 417, 410, and then that 407. But I do think I love how there's a ton of room overhead, and then also that kind of that valley below. And I think if like the DXY continues to ramp, 10-year continues to ramp, and Friday doesn't go as planned, I think that like 400, we see 400 pretty quickly, because you can see down to that like 400-ish level, there's really not much to catch it. It's kind of a single bar zone. So that's where I'm looking. I don't know how much Wolf you pay attention to, like kind of those little macro indicators intraday, but those are the two things I'm gonna be keeping an eye on.
Well, yeah, I mean, let's talk about that for a second, and I'll just kind of bounce right off you to Mans. How do you factor in these different macro pieces and, keep an understanding of, hey, like I'm watching the chart, I want to be pure to price action, but there's also macro events and other pieces. And like, today, the student loan stuff comes out, and then Biden speaking, all of a sudden it's like, how does that factor in, right? And then Jackson Hole's happening, all these different pieces.
Yeah, so I'll give the best way that I can to break this down, and everybody's brain and mind is different. But honestly, the way that my brain works, guys, is I try to nitpick like the most important macro factors that I feel like have a impact on the market, and not only the market, but the stocks that I'm trading on a daily basis. So one of the biggest things is the 10-year yield. And I learned this like pretty early, luckily, like in my trading career. Like when I was starting to short, I was like, oh, like the market hates when this thing goes up, like the 10-year yield, like let me learn more about that. And I did. And it's like interest rates are so important to the economy, and they're so important to growth stocks. So the macro indicator that I pay attention to the most and does affect my daily trading outside of the charts is the 10-year yield. So if you're starting out, I think that's a really good one to like start by paying attention to, because it's such a hypersensitive indicator to how growth and like a lot of stocks are going to trade. Because growth companies need debt, right? And the 10-year yield is basically like, okay, well, how expensive is debt to acquire right now? And companies, that aren't profitable or are working towards profitability, they love, right, like low cost debt, because they can grow faster and at a low cost. So that's a really important one to pay attention to, guys. And again, understanding like big macro events like Jackson Hole are obviously important too. But really, like I said, I think the 10-year yield is a fantastic one to focus on, especially if you're kind of newer, because I know a lot of people that tune into the spaces are sometimes newer traders too. So I think that's a really great like starting point if you want to gauge macro. And then if you want to dig deeper into like the dollar and, some of the other things that are going on. But I think that's a fantastic starting point.
Okay, perfect. And then do you just want to touch on the Qs? And then I've got a few individual stocks I want to run by you.
Yeah, so I actually think we're seeing a little bit of strength in the Qs. So the thing, again, not to harp on the 10-year yield, but it's impressive to see where the Qs are right now compared to where the 10-year yield is. So like basically in that sense, that 311 area is going to be very important on the Qs, and that 313 area is also very important. So we've been defending that 313 area really heavily the past couple of days. So that 313.50 zone. And so, like I said, I think the Qs are showing a little bit more resiliency to where yields are at, because of the fact that I think we've kind of like widely accepted that we're probably saw peak inflation, right? Because we saw that last CPI print came in a little bit cooler. I think people are kind of knowing like, hey, yeah, the Fed may tighten, one more time, one more 50 or 75 point hike, but they're probably going to wrap up before midterm. So I think you're seeing a little bit more resiliency in the Qs and in ARK. ARK's going to attempt to print a higher low here, which will be really important. But like I said, I think that, the Qs, they really need to defend 311, in my opinion. That's the really big key level. And I think that'll coincide with like 408 on SPY. So those are going to be the key levels I'm watching. But, overall, I think that the resiliency this time around has been a little bit more impressive.
Is it exactly on 311? for you?
So the level that I have marked out on the cues that is like my level to pay attention to is 311.76, which is the wick down on the daily candle from August 2nd. So that was at the start of this run, right? We pulled back for the first time and we printed those two daily candles. If you are looking at so it's 8-1 and 8-2, and you see how we pulled back and retested the breakout of 311.76, or in that zone, and that wick that touched 311.76, that's the zone that needs to be protected, right? And right now they're protecting like kind of those intraday levels from that day, because we're basically back at the start of August right now. And you can see how much consolidation and like bounces there were prior to breaking this level. Like if you look and see early May, we consolidated and had a lot of price action in between, 315 and 322. But really that wick from August 2nd on that daily candle down, right? That was the breakout, then the retest of the breakout level. So that breakout retest level is the level that I want to pay attention to, because that's going to be our most recent point of like key support right before we made a move higher. So if we're going to make a move higher again, we need to protect that level, in my opinion.
There's also a bit of a gap there.
Yeah.
Once you get under that, you could basically just fill in that whole July 28th candle potentially in a day.
Yeah, exactly. You could fill it down to probably 305 pretty quickly.
Okay, let's talk about a couple setups that look pretty good for the rest of this week. I know you mentioned D-Dog is on your radar for tomorrow morning, if you want to go over that.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, look at the strength that Snow is displaying right now in after hours, right? So pretty solid earnings report, and the forward guide is, I think, what people are going to pay attention to. So I think that sector is going to be very strong. One of the main reasons that I'm honestly bullish on Datadog, like at least long side wise tomorrow, is look at the Snow chart. I think this is really important to pay attention to. You got to go out on the weekly before you find like levels that are applicable here, because this is a big time breakout if this holds. Right, we're trading at 188 right now. When was the last time Snow traded above this level? Like April. Let's see. Like late April. Like late April was the last time we were above these price points. Like we tested 180 on the 12th of August, rejected hard. We've faded $20 since. This is a big breakout. I mean, Snow past price action would say we probably end up somewhere in the 220, 230 range. So, and there was a lot of selling pressure in this range earlier on. So it's going to be interesting. If this breakout can hold and push into the, that 200 spot, I think you're going to see a lot of strength within that sector. And so this chart has my attention on a lot of the cloud names tomorrow. So I think Datadog has a fantastic chart. In terms of levels that I'm going to be watching, DDOG, so double DOG is the ticker. A lot of consolidation here. So this thing is definitely coiled for a larger scale move. I really want to pay attention to the 117.95 level. So that would be support on those back-to-back daily candles weekly candles, back-to-back weekly candles on Datadog from the 22nd of April and the 29th of April. Back-to-back weeks, we had support there. And once we cracked that support, you see how we made that larger scale move down, if you're following along with me. So I'm going to be paying attention to a break over that 117.95 level if we get it. Since we're trading at like 110 right now, I'm going to be using 113.35 as my trigger to get to 118. But I definitely think that Datadog has potential to take on that level tomorrow if Snow can hold this breakout.
So I know you mentioned the 117 level. So where did the 113 level come from?
Yep. So the 113 level was that kind of daily resistance area. If you look back on the daily chart, you see how there's a lot of wicks up from, we'll say, like June 6th, 7th, 9th, 8th, 9th, and then again in July. So the 5th of July, July 6th, July 7th, we had a lot of wicks into this 112.50 zone. So I'm going to be looking for a break through 112.50 and over 113. Really would be like in this market, you want to wait. You don't want to try to like buy the breakout the minute that it happens, even if it's a candle close over. I'd rather wait for like confirmation that, hey, like this move is going to happen, because you need that when the market is slower like it's been. So really the level I want to pay attention to would really be the 112.54 to 113 would give me that kind of confidence if we take over that zone that we could push towards higher highs into that 117, 118 target. And then, like I said, I think that there's a good chance we may see that, at least an attempt at a breakout through that level tomorrow. So that'll be kind of like my target range. And obviously there's another opportunity if it gets through.
Okay, perfect. D-Book, what stocks are on your watch list for tomorrow?
Yeah, I was peeking around after. I was kind of looking for relative strength, like I was talking about. I'm not the most eager in the world to short or be, so ready to trade puts. So I was looking around kind of at some relative strength, and the travel sector is one that caught my eye. NCLH today had, huge volume, closed that daily candle near highs, and you can kind of see like that 1430-ish pivot on NCLH. You can see, I mean, if you add the 1430 level to your NCLH daily chart, you can see right away that's really like the key breakout level. And then kind of through that zone, I would assume that it would test the top of that candle from August 16th, which was up to 1480. And so, and there's also some confluence if you look further left at that 1480 area. But the travel sector as a whole, because if you look at DAL, that one's got a pretty interesting daily chart just from the perspective of relative strength and both room overhead on that chart. And then also Airbnb too. So kind of that's what I kind of like to do is, when I click over to NCLH after hours and see that it had a huge day, then I'm going to go look at the airlines, look at Airbnb, look at EXPE, Expedia, just really anything, maybe even the hotel lines. And I mean, those two, like MAR, Marriott, had great volume today, pretty healthy candles. So when I see, I guess when I see strength in one place, I go and really look at all of the other spots in that sector. And I think a lot of those daily candles in the travel sector were a lot stronger than some of the price action we saw in tech, QQQ, or most of the broader market. So I guess that's just an area that really, really interests me into the rest of the week. Just because that's kind of where my head's at right now. And then also the solar sector has been interesting to, I know myself and also Mans, looking at SPWR or even just the sector ETF, TAN on the solar sector, pretty strong days. And so this is why I guess I'm not super ready to play puts. I know when it was earlier in the year, this year, I feel like when it was time to short, like there wasn't this many sectors like showing this much opportunity. It was like it really seemed like all of the short setups were really like in your face. There was really not very many places to hide. But I don't know. I guess I feel like if there's somewhere to hide and it looks like possibly potentially solar, the travel sector, then that's where I'm going to try to be playing upside, just because I don't know. That's just how I'm feeling right now. But those two sectors are really interesting to me.
Okay, yeah, I do like that setup a lot on the travel on what was it, NCLH, I think.
Yeah, yeah. And
Um,
CCL printed like a much weaker candle, but RCL, the third cruise line, has a pretty solid candle as well on good volume. And these are post earnings moves, I believe, on both. Not like recently post earnings, but I mean, anytime I'm seeing really good price structure and really good volume structure like this, a few weeks after an earnings report, I'm definitely gonna have that bullish bias. And I mean, I think that's probably my top focus tomorrow is kind of that 1430-ish, or even today's high, which was 1404. So and I feel like that's something I do too, is kind of having like two levels almost. Like even on D-Dog, I feel like was a decent example. Like um on NCLH, like this 14-ish psych, that 1404 today's high, that's where kind of a level I can expect it to get moving. Maybe I'll take a light size position, maybe a starter, and then see what happens once you get to that true pivot at 1430. And then sometimes I end up taking that starter at that first level break, and then it ends up just being gone, and that's okay, right? Like if you just didn't make as much as you could, I'm never going to be that upset in that scenario. But I mean, I think that's probably going to be my top focus, is that NCLH. Do you have any you got any bangers for us, Wolf? What have you kind of been peeping?
yeah, absolutely. Let me pull up my watch list. All right. So a couple of the pieces. So I've been on top of two main areas this week, and I've been writing more commons and then a little bit of stuff. So CELH, this is one that I've been writing as a long position for actually over a year now, and then recently have been pushing a lot, as it's made this breakout because I was just watching for it to come back through the all-time highs. We got that great Pepsi news that got it back up to there, and then it basically based for a little bit here. I was waiting for the 21 day to catch up. Once that caught up, you can see that happened on August 22nd. I still like it here. It's pushing through new all-time highs. It has a little bit of time until they're going to have to report earnings again. I think the stock's pattern and formation just looks awesome. So for people who want to enter, I think you could wait for it to potentially come back. But these ones that are pushing all-time highs, the other one that I want to put out there, which I picked as kind of like a play of the week on a Sunday night space, is GUSH. And I think that this is just a sector I wanted to ask you guys about overall with what's going on with energy and oil and gas and everything. I think Gush is already up like 10% on the week right here, but I also still really like it. It's making its way back up the right side here. I think that for me, a big point on Gush is going to be right at 200. It's obviously a psychological point, but it's also where we tapped out on April 21st. If you go back, I feel like, man, that type of analysis looks right up your alley, I think, because it basically taps right at 200 on both April 21st and April 18th. So I'm looking for a break of Gush through 200, and then I would love to take it. And I think it could see a run up even to like the 250 area as we go, especially into, the winter time where typically you're just seeing more demand for things like oil, gas, natural gas, and all that type of stuff. Those are two I can talk to more, but I'd love to get your thoughts.
Yeah, no, I'm just looking at Gush right now, actually. So this one is really interesting to me, even if it clears 195. So I'm a big, something I talk about in the room all the time is notable wicks. And like, I don't know, I've kind of like recently got into candle structure, like a solid amount, because I think it's so telling in terms, it kind of like can illustrate the story for you. And like, this is a great example because there's really like notable wicks on this chart. If you look at the daily chart, the 2 days I would look at would be, what is it, 613 and 614 daily candles. There's like those two like notably larger wicks than you kind of can spot really anywhere else on the chart, because that was the key level, because there was that gap up in May, which I could be wrong on the dates, but I believe that must have been the Russia-Ukraine news possibly. Or maybe that was okay. So there's that gap up over 195, that initial breakout, which happened May 25th. And then we made that like massive move to 257, which was kind of like that parabolic blow off move. So really where I would be kind of using my like bias level would be 194.70. So that would be the extension of the two wicks, which were on June 13th and June 14th. So the lows on there was 193.41, and then 193.47. But the top of that like breakout area was the 194 zone on May 25th. So that would be the level that I would be using. You could use the 200 psych level too, probably, because that's the candle body area of those 2 days. So in between 195 and 200 is where this would become a focus for me, just like you said. And then, yeah, if it gets through that level, I think it looks like a really good move back to 257. And then, but if it fails at that level too, there's always an opportunity both ways. So, that's a great chart.
Yeah, just want to point out, definitely not the only person who found this. If you look at the option chain, the September 16th options are just off the charts. There's like millions of dollars of call premium and very few puts loaded up, and a bunch of people are actually in the money now too on those, and it looks like they're still holding. So it's definitely an interesting one.
Yeah, that's a really good point. Is if you're doing some like more broad based analysis, looking at flow is important. And another thing that's really good, and just to add on to that, Wolf, would be is looking at puts being closed. If you're bullish and you're like, so for example, on like a stock like this, if you look and you see a lot of like, so like today there were like $30-40 million blocks on BABA. Not to use a different stock, but that's where I saw some today. And you can tell by the delta on those, it's more than likely those puts are being closed, because nobody's going to open up those puts like with that size, with that delta. And they'll come in as usually blocks rather than sweeps on, like, for example, I use Cheddar Flow, but that can usually be a very bullish signal. We saw a lot of that happen before Netflix reported earnings. There was mass like put closures based on the delta, and look what happened after earnings. The stock ripped like $50, right? So that's also a good thing to look at if you're paying attention to flow.
Yeah, those are a couple of I mean, I'd love to get your guys' thoughts on energy in general. We seem to be having a really nice run here. Obviously, everyone's paying attention to Oxy. Oxy just set new 52-week highs today, I believe. Yeah, it did. And, continues to run XOM, basically that whole sector. Is that something you guys are touching, Deepa?
This is actually a sore subject that you brought up, because I feel like if there's one thing, like, because the market really hasn't offered much this week or the end of last week, but I think if there's one trade that's been just awesome, was the energy names. And I feel like maybe I was the only person on Twitter that wasn't in these or in Oxy. I feel like, but I mean, I haven't looked at these as closely. It's just not really a sector I have a ton of experience trading or am like the most comfortable in. And I feel like banks are kind of the same way. For some reason, energy and the banks, I just haven't traded a ton, just because there's so many um, factors that aren't price action. There's a lot of like macro implications and stuff like that. So I mean, it definitely still looks awesome, and like you said, the flow's still as strong as could be. So there's really an Exxon too. Exxon's daily is right at a huge pivot and coming up on that 100 psych. That seems like almost like a given at this point that XOM is going to test that 100 psych. We will see. I mean, CELH was also another one. You kind of gave me the double whammy on the FOMO here. That stock is just one that I feel like when it's set up in either direction, like pretty clearly, it just really like makes that move. It just seems like a smooth moving stock. This whole like run up off the bottom has been awesome. And for some reason, I never traded. I feel like I see it on FinTwit all the time, like A plus setup CELH, and then it just goes, and I'm just not trading it. But those, I mean, both of those ideas that you brought up both look awesome. Like that weekly candle on CELH into highs is definitely great. Did they have somebody buying them out? Didn't they have
So
Pepsi.
yeah, not a buyout, but Pepsi is going to be taking over international distribution for them, and maybe owns, I guess, part of the company. I don't think it's a buyout. It seems like a very beneficial thing to both sides.
Yeah, and especially being this super strong pattern 2 weeks post earnings, and really holding that, because you see the volume on CELH from the week of August 8th, their earnings week is just massive. And then these 2 weeks following it, I mean, last week was a declining volume, lower volume weekly candle, and then it was able to print it like this week's monster candle. And so whenever really I see like a chart like CELH where it's making that high volume post earnings move up, and then kind of just digesting it, declining volume, just hanging out, those are like, that's literally my favorite setup. So I think you definitely had a good eye there, especially with that demand right around like 90, 94-ish. I mean, that's one of my favorite patterns to trade, really, is that high volume post earnings move, and then like clean digestion, clean consolidation on declining volume, and then you see them, make that move back up. So I mean, those are both great. I wish I had more thoughts on energy. I guess um a little bit out of the loop on that. I guess I'm trying to maybe ignore it a little bit because I'm so behind the move on it. But I mean, Oxy and XOM have been great for sure.
Yeah, we got to talk about how impressive this CELH move is. I just zoomed out on the weekly chart, Wolf. This thing is nutso. This is like this is like ARC, but it like ramped up and just made new all-time highs. Like, that's insane.
Yeah.
This thing pulled back to 30s from 110. So declined what, like 65, 70%? Like, it was just literally like every other growth stock. And then this thing is now at all-time highs. Talk about like, you can gain a lot of personality from about a company on how their stock trades. And I mean, yeah, people love Celsius, but this is very, very impressive for a stock to be making all-time highs in this market. It's extremely impressive.
It feels like it's just like a name that gives like great setups often and follows through. And I like Jonah Lupton. I don't know if you guys have seen him on here. He is a huge NCLH guy. I mean, I definitely great name to trade. I just don't have a lot of experience trading it, but I do like the personality of it, because when it's set up, it does seem like it goes and follows through most of the time.
Yeah, I looked back. My first purchase was March of 2021 on this at $48. And I literally never even started trimming. I trimmed a little bit of that position this week.
Yeah, man, that's insane. That's really, really impressive. It's like, that's a name you want to own long term too, because it's like, what's this thing going to do in a proper bull market? Like, you know what I mean? That's like the thought that comes to your head, right?
Absolutely. I mean, there's a lot of haters on it, and it's because of the expanded multiples. It's got like a 250 PE ratio,
which is nuts.
So,
do you like Celsius, Wolf? Do you like the drink?
So here's the wildest part of it all. I don't drink caffeine, and it's to a point where like I actually had, so me and Jonah actually mailed me. Me and him had a bunch of conversations about Celsius, and Jonah was like, "You got to taste this," and he mailed me a case of Celsius to my house. And I was like, I don't drink caffeine. I haven't had caffeine in like years. And so I was just like, all right, like I gave it to my friends. So listen, I've heard from everyone. Everyone around me loves it. I've seen it in a bunch of places. I've actually met in person with some of Celsius's management as well at a conference. So I've like kind of been there throughout the due diligence, but I can't say that I've actually tasted one because I don't drink caffeine.
Yeah, hopefully I can trade NCLH eventually. I do like that personality, but
who needs caffeine when you have morning trading with Mans?
You got to bump it up. No, and like, yeah, this space is not sponsored by Celsius, but if you were wondering. No,
although I do own the stock, so
yeah, exactly. It's sponsored in a sense. Yeah, that's really impressive. I feel like I've just never traded it because it doesn't trade like super high volume. It's like 7 to 8 million shares a day. But to touch quickly, I don't want to spend too much time, but just Celsius and Oxy, both incredible daily volume relative to the average. I always look at that, like relative volume is super important on the daily if you're going to trade a stock. And both of those have fantastic daily volume relative to its average.
Ever since that Pepsi news, the volume's been awesome.
Yeah, there's been a bidder in there for sure.
Yeah, and I'll say also in your setups, I mean, I've got a couple squeezes and other pieces firing, so I like it. All right, we got about 15 minutes left. Do you guys want to take a couple questions? We've got some people requesting.
Yeah, we can do that for sure.
Okay, let me bring up a couple of these people. If you're going to ask a question, please just try to, keep it to like 30 seconds, straightforward, all that good stuff. Sure, 24, you want to go? All right, I think I see them up here. All right, while we're waiting on 24, Jow Gold, you've been requesting for a while. Appreciate the patience. Did you have a question you want to ask, Mans? I'll try to bring up one more. Sometimes when people request for a while and then they get brought up, the sound just goes out for them on Spaces. Something that I've seen a lot. So, all right, I got 3 people up here. Any of you want to ask questions? Jow Gold?
Yeah, I'm here, bro. Can you hear me?
A little bit. It sounds a little rough, but I think we can hear you.
I'm trying to know which stock are you people talking about so I can follow up.
Oh, that sounds a little rough. You may want to try switching.
I could not hear.
Yeah, you may want to try switching. I'm gonna bring it down for a sec. You may want to try to just switch from Wi-Fi to anything else. All right, Love Mondays. We've got you up here. Do you have a question that you would like to ask?
I wasn't ready, guys. I just knew that I wanted to talk to Mans and get some ideas, but I wasn't ready with the question.
Okay, well, no worries. If you want to hang out for a second, feel free.
Let me.
Yeah, we can give you a minute to try to get a question ready. I'll try one more here. We're running through the ranks, but people seem to be wanting to ask questions, but there seems to be a couple technical issues. All right, Bunny, what's going on? Do you have a question for Mans or D-Book? This is the last one I'll try, and then I'll throw out a few of my own. We can just give everybody else a minute. All right, Bunny, if you're gonna, feel free to ask. If not, I can keep it rolling here for a second. Okay.
Okay, I can speak. Yeah. Okay, sorry.
There we go. Yeah, what's up?
Really good to be here, and thank you. My question is that what do you think about marijuana stocks that since because of US and Germany is legalizing, do you think we have finally found the bottom?
I guess the question was, have we found a bottom?
Yes,
in
yes, in
essence?
marijuana stocks, yeah.
In marijuana stocks, is that what you're? Or they said
Yeah, yes, yes.
Yeah.
Mario stocks.
Marijuana stocks, yeah.
I think you got it, man. Yeah.
That's a tough one, man.
Yeah.
These things do not trade that well. I think probably the biggest catalyst for that is going to be midterms. I mean, if you look at like a weekly chart on Tilray, which I do keep track of because I own some, which I just bought like a while ago at like 320, or I don't even know, I think it was like 370. It's like, the weekly chart says we have, right? But it's going to probably be a slow grind. The prior all-time low on this is 243. I can't speak to the fundamentals as well because I haven't studied them as much. I honestly bought some primarily because it held its all-time low, which was 243. And I took like a really speculative small position on it. So I keep track of it a little bit. And that was, I believe, the COVID low, which it was 320, 2020. So I don't know. I think that's probably your best gauge. It seems like, I don't know, they have like real revenue and things of that nature. But from a technical perspective, maybe, but it's very hard to tell because they just don't trade very well. So it'll be interesting to watch into midterms, though. I feel like you'll get a more clear answer then.
Yeah, I was thinking, I was thinking more along the lines of if you're thinking like long-term investment, really like a 10+ year, don't buy and hold, or even 5+ year type of plan. MSOS is really, I think, the place to park money long term in the cannabis space. It's the ETF for the actual U.S. companies, because I know we day trade like Tilray, ACB, and GrowG, and kind of those names. Those are the more liquid day trading names. But in terms of like, if I was going to park my money somewhere and really want to invest in the cannabis space, I would probably park it in that MSOS ETF, just because those are the companies right now that are licensed. Like if it was federally legal I think it was federally legal tomorrow, Tilray and Aurora and a lot of those tickers would not be able to operate. But these are the U.S. licensed names, and I don't have an answer either for if we're at the bottom of those. I feel like there's probably like a lot of really smart people on record 50% ago saying it's a great buy. So I'm probably not going to stick my neck out there, but I think that's a great place to look for long-term cannabis exposure would be MSOS. So I mean, that's just something I recommend taking a look at.
Okay, but what do you think about Germany legalizing?
Yeah, I mean, I don't have a ton of, like I said, I'm not an expert on like the space fundamentally, or really any of like the legislation, because that's what it does come down to. There's a lot of like legal process. So I guess I'm not an expert on that. But yeah, I guess the only advice I have is to take a peek at that MSOS and look at the holdings inside of it too. Just Google MSOS holdings and kind of go from there is my advice.
Perfect. Thanks, Bunny. Appreciate it. All right, I want to bring in Mike Seaver. You do have a question.
What's going on, guys? Can you hear me? I'm in my car right now. Can you hear me?
Yeah, we've got you.
Gotcha. Hey, just wanted to point out, keep an eye on COP. I've been swinging that one. I've been swinging 120 September calls on that. I think that had a little bit better strength end of day than Oxy did. Potential to go to 113 if it kind of breaks this today's high. So keep an eye on that one. And then, what are you guys' thoughts on consumers? Like, I'm watching KHC kind of broke out of a little bit of a bull flag. Possible move should go 39, should go in the money. Possible to 40, but I know if it breaks 40, has some room to go. So kind of just sitting at this level forever, just waiting for that. And then I think Clorox too. Clorox has a big gap above. I mean, are these things going to go, or are they going to fail and sell off? What's your thoughts?
Mike, I do like this KHC setup. If you guys look at KHC, you can kind of see that my key level is 39.10. It's kind of really that 39 psych, and it's trying to come out of that base. And these are names, again, I've tweeted this like a zillion times, like XLP, the consumer staples, are names that can kind of trade counter when we're in times where SPY and QQQ are shaky or aren't trending, pretty choppy, just not really the place to be. XLP is always a place I'm looking. And I mean, KHC is definitely a great idea, and Clorox too. I'd recommend Googling the XLP holdings as well. I know I've said beating that drum too, but just looking through these and becoming like growing that mental bank of tickers. But I mean, XLP is a super interesting spot. I trade like MO or KO and all of those names. So, I mean, I think I'm going to add KHC to my watch list probably tomorrow for like kind of that top 10 focus list. I do like that.
Okay. Yeah, I honestly, I'm probably not the best commodity guy. It's not my sector. I personally don't trade the names very much. And I don't know. Personally, I feel like the daily. I prefer to trade things with continuation, like in different sectors. Personally, I know people like D-Book and K1 Calls, who is also on Twitter. They really excel in some of those commodities trades. I've seen them have some like crazy gains. It's not my strong suit though, so I honestly, it's something probably I don't want to speak on because I don't feel like I'm an expert at it. But I will say, D-Book, that MO chart looks really interesting after that Jewel news when it sold off. I'm not sure where that is at in terms of legal proceeding wise, but that chart looks nice, and I know they pay a handsome dividend, so that looks like a nice one.
Yeah, I mean, these are. I mean, I'm never really gonna be fixated on these names in like a strong market. I'm more of a like high beta growth tech trader in those times, but these are always great places to look, especially right now when there's so many like macro events, so much news, so much chop and weakness in a lot of places. I think it's a great idea to be looking at KHC, MO and stuff.
I only trade stocks with 100 XPE or higher, so.
Love it.
That's all I got.
Okay,
Thanks, Mike.
I think I'm ready.
Go for it.
All right. So I wanted to ask you, Mans, kind of maybe you've answered this already. I came in late, but what are some of your long-term holds in your long-term portfolio, and why?
All right. Speaking of stocks with 100 XPE or more, no, I'm just kidding. So my largest long-term position is Coinbase, which I am positioned in high 40s, 49 average. That is my largest position personally right now. I also have a position in Roblox that is relatively large in terms of like the overall percentage of my portfolio. Like, and when I say large, it's like 10 to 11%. And I'm recently have just started allocating like larger amounts of money into long-term stuff. I'll tell you what, I'm going to be looking at NCLH after today because that looks like an interesting one. But those are probably like two of my higher conviction names because I feel like I don't know. I'm personally think that you can look at like this market cycle and it will tell you a lot about the future. And like, I could totally be wrong on that, but I think you like look at the names that bounced and with how aggressive they came off bottoms, right? So like Roblox and Coin were two of the more aggressive names that came off the bottom. And I think it's because they have like real tangible earnings business and their like growth outlook is very high, right? Like, so like Rivian is another name that I have exposure to, but it's much smaller because I feel like the overall growth is very high in like names like Roblox and Coinbase because they have such like their market is so small compared to like what it can be in the future. And those are some of the names that like while I'm younger, I'm prioritizing accumulating.
Okay, that's a good answer. I have a lot accumulated in Roblox and PayPal and a little bit in Coinbase. So thank you for that. The other question I had was like, what is your, I know this is kind of elementary, but kind of what is your routine every day? Like when you sit down for the day and when you leave for the day? I know you have a Discord, but what is some advice you could give some new traders that are sitting down behind the desk on what to do every day?
Yeah, absolutely. So let me give you a piece of advice that I would tell to anyone that wants to start. Is not going to be the intraday. I think that it is more important what you do on Sunday night because I talk about this all the time. I tweeted about it last week. Book and I were joking around, but it's serious in the sense that I think that the most impactful thing that I ever did as a options trader or trader in general, and maybe even as a personality, is my day starts the night before. And when you start to look at things like that, I think your whole outlook changes, not just on trading, but really more about discipline and in life. And so Sunday nights are like my like sanctuary, right? Like, so I apply 2 hours every Sunday, usually from 2 to 4 p.m. to my week ahead, going over catalysts, going over setups I like, macro, like, catalysts ahead, and the things and themes that I really want to prioritize. And ever since I did that, and I film a Sunday scan for the Discord every week, which is like where I on video go over everything. And that is, as much as it's helpful for them, it's helpful for me too, because it really has changed my routine forever, and it's changed the way that I go about things forever too. Like, not just in trading, but in life in general, which affects your trading. So, your week starts the day before on Sunday, and your day starts the night before each day of the week too. So always remember that.
All right. Well, thank you so much. I'm a big fan. I was in the Discord, and I like to give you a hard time too, but thanks for doing this. Thanks, Wolf.
Thank you. Hey, Bar Chart, thanks for coming up on a space. What's up?
Hey, what's up, man? How are you?
Living the dream. How are you?
Living the dream as well with Wolf. Follow-up question for Mans on Coinbase. And this is probably more of a longer-term question, but any thoughts on the regulatory issues concerning a lot of the altcoins? And, if the SEC or even the CFTC get their way, how would that impact Coinbase sort of on the long term in terms of the revenue if some of those altcoins are declared securities? Any issues or going concerns with Coinbase's ability to operate going forward?
Yeah, no, absolutely. That's a great question. And obviously the regulatory space is definitely kind of like the Wild West right now in crypto, right? But I will say one of the reasons that I do have, let's call it like extended confidence, is I think that you have to first off think about who is Coinbase's customer, right? Is it your, not degenerate, but is it your altcoin trader, like high frequency altcoin trader? Probably not, right? Because nobody is going to go with Coinbase, which has a higher transaction fee per trade. It's actually very high. That's why they make a lot of money, right? Especially in bull markets. So I really think that even if a few altcoins or even a group of altcoins are relegated as securities and not tradable, I think that in terms of overall revenue, I would say the majority. I don't want to speak on exact numbers because I'm not like 100% positive, but I would venture to say that a majority of Coinbase's revenue comes from kind of like the top 10, right? On CoinMarketCap, like those top 10 coins are probably a pretty large percentage of Coinbase's revenue. And I think that their model is sustainable long term, and it's always going to have some type of correlation in terms of like the price of Bitcoin and Ethereum. And so for me, rather than owning crypto itself, I've taken the route that I'm going to own what I believe is the number one exchange. You'll notice through all the stuff that happened this spring, Coinbase was, relatively quiet in terms of things that they had going wrong in terms of, security and exposure. And I think they've done things correctly. I have a lot of faith in Brian Armstrong. I think he's, a genius in that sense. And I think it's kind of like the second coming of Bezos, almost like maybe for our generation, right? I think that Coinbase will be that Amazon that comes out of this cycle.
Yeah, great thoughts. 100% agreed. I think the top 10 certainly would constitute the bulk of the trading activity that takes place. I know from everything I've read, Bitcoin and Ethereum look to be safe in terms of regulatory crosshairs. But then after those two, it's sort of a big question mark, like whether even a Cardano or a Binance coin or a Litecoin, would be or could potentially be declared securities. Obviously, nobody in Congress can agree on anything for this stuff, so it's probably years out. But yeah, just was curious on your thoughts about that.
Yeah, no, it's a great question, and I think it's a fantastic question to ask up here because it's something that needs to be covered. But every investment has risks, right? And so in with Coinbase, that is one of them. But for me, the reward far outweighs the risk in terms of what I feel like their market cap is currently and what it can be.
Okay, cool. Thanks, man.
Love it. Okay, we're almost at 6 p.m. here, so almost time for our next space. While a couple of the speakers are filtering in, the last thing I did want to ask, since we're talking coin, Mans, I don't know if we did it yet on this space. Do you just want to give key levels on coin going into the rest of the week, and then just any other final comments from yourself and D-Book?
Yeah, I'll toss out some key levels. I will say, guys, I have not been trading coin as much the last few days, and if I have, it's been very small in size. I do think it's coiled, and I think there is a move coming soon because of the Ethereum 2.0 merge that's happening. But personally, guys, I've really kind of expanded my daily focus outside of coin. With any size because of just the volume that it's trading right now. I think today it traded 6 million shares, which is very, very light in volume. So, but the 71 level 70 to 71 is very important. The pinned video that was on my Twitter for a while, 69.50 to 71. I was talking about a breakout at that level. We're just been sitting here for a few days now, so it's at a nice spot long wise. But if it breaks below 69, that would be more bearish. If it can get over, that 77, 78 zone, then I would, be more long side bias.
Okay, perfect. Mans, I love these, dude. We got to run it back next week.
Absolutely. I thank you for having myself, and I know D-Book appreciates it and loves coming on to it. I've really enjoyed it.
Yeah, these are fantastic. Anything else you want to share today?
Yeah, no. Sorry. I appreciate coming on as well. I guess depending on what trader you are, like if you're a day trader, there's going to be one thing that matters over the next few days, and that's price action. So I'm just limiting my overnight risk and just trying to tune out that noise as much as possible and stay focused on kind of the price action reaction to a lot of the noise with JPOW at the end of the week. And so just staying focused on my plan and limiting overnight risk is going to be key, I think. So you appreciate you having us though.
Wolf, I do have one more note, and I'll make it super quick. Guys, make sure there are times to go heavy, and I tweeted about this. There's times to go small. In my opinion, this is a time to be as small as you can and limiting risk as much as possible. This is not a beginner-friendly environment. The price action we're seeing this week, it's more difficult, especially intraday if you're trying to trade. So it's okay to be one, done, and move on. So just limit your risk in price action like this, and when the hot market comes back like it was the past 7 weeks, there's a good time to size in.
Love that mentality. Absolutely agree. Thinking with small wins has been what's kept me green this week. I think I'm like 4-0 or 5-0 this week. They're not big wins. Everything for me is done by 25%. I'm out. I'm happy to take even 4 or 5% on some of these. It's really a winning mindset and mentality for the current market environment. All right, everybody, if you haven't already followed Mans and D-Book, you're doing yourself a disservice. So go ahead and check them out, throw them to follow. Hopefully they'll be joining us again next Wednesday at 5 p.m. EST. More to come with them, but yeah, just 2 top tier guys to have on. So appreciate you guys. Enjoy the rest of your evenings.
Thanks, man. You too.
Take it easy.
Absolutely.